The one thing that I love about Mark's story coming up here is we named that boot camp the Never Ending Facebook Leads Boot Camp, right? And it sounds like a pretty big promise, right? Well, Mark proved it. In what we're going to show you here, Mark, I'm going to go through just a few slides so people see kind of a show and tell of what you've done. And then I'm going to turn it over and you and I can kind of talk a little bit about what you did and how important that was. But this was during the boot camp, and he said, I want to give some words of encouragement today. This niche and target market stuff doesn't come easy. It takes a while to figure out, get your blog and your Facebook up to date, watching webinars, viewing trainings, repeated emails to Steve, etc. All I can say is that when it's all set up, it's completely worth it. I finally got my niche in line. Last Saturday, I posted a 2-day Facebook ad linking to my irresistible offer and form on my blog. I received 24 forms filled out in 2 days, and 20 of them have appointments to talk to me on the phone next week. Best yet, the cost was only $17. And I'm going to let Mark talk about his conversion rate there and how many people he actually signed up. But highly qualified leads is where it's at. What he did, Mark, I'm going to let you turn this over, but here's your blog, right, at markheilbrand.com. And you had that ad go to a specific page, and your target niche is basically the public service, right? Fire, military, police officers, things like that. And you had a video, and then you had a little bit of text, but you had a form that people had to fill out to take advantage of your irresistible offer. And they hit the submit button, and you had a lot on this form, which I'm going to have you talk a little bit about that, because the more you put onto a form, the more you require people to fill out versus here's my name and email address, submit, the fewer people that are going to actually fill out that form. But the more qualified those people are because they've taken the time to really do it and answer the questions. So there's a little submit button down below. His form kind of kept going on. There was a lot on that form that he requested of people. The end result was, though, in 2 days for $17, got 20 appointments to talk on the phone with people. At this point, I'm just going to say, oh, by the way, Mark did this with technology that came standard from the blogging service. That form was created by a form generator that came with the blogging service. So all the tools are there. Mark just put them together beautifully. And so, Mark, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about how this has impacted your business. And then I want you to even get down into the kind of targeting and audience that you created on Facebook, if you could.
All right. Sounds good, Steve. So I'm going to pretty much go through the 3 things that I did to make my business pretty much explode. I mean, I got to the point where, you start off with your warm market, and you really run out of those people quickly, and I needed to find a way of targeting people who I didn't know. And I think that's one thing I want to say even before I start is, you're going to hear me talking about target markets and irresistible offers and all these Facebook ads and custom audiences. And I want to tell you that, just know that I had no idea what any of this meant. And I was just smart enough to know that when I didn't know something about something specific, I need to find an expert. And that's why I came to Steve. So I was talking to Steve today, and he was telling me about all these things that he's so proud of me for doing, and I said, pretty much I'm just listening to what you're giving me in these boot camps. And so all these things you're going to see today is just me just repeating what he has really taught me. But I'm going to go through a couple things real quick just so you guys have an idea of how I worked it. So when it comes to your brand, obviously your brand is you, but you got to think when you start getting into your niche is going to be something that you could talk about, for hours and hours upon hours. It's something that you can relate to people. You want to talk to people who are going to be just like you. When you have people who have that common interest, you guys are able to form a bond with each other. You have credibility with them even before they pick up the phone and talk to you. Talking to people who you don't know is kind of difficult when you first start off, but when you have that common ground, it actually feels like you know them before you actually get on the phone. It already feels like you have that relationship. Now, like Steve said, my niche is first responders. It's police, fire, military. I'm a police officer. I can talk about police work, until the cows come home. I'm all about police work, and so that just was naturally, it led me into that niche. Now, when I say naturally, I mean I spent a lot of time looking at various webinars from Steve about how to figure out your target market niche, a lot of emails going back and forth. It wasn't easy, but once I had it, I thought, well, why didn't I think of this earlier? I mean, it should have come to my mind so much easier, and that's just something that really was able to be brought out by going to Steve's webinar. So I was able to find this niche, and this niche, like I said, it allows me to form a relationship even before I get on the phone with people. So now that I have this niche, I really worked up my blog, and I started to create content, because you got to really make sure that you're engaging, you have interesting and helpful content on your site before you even start to get all these other people to come to your site. You want to make sure that's set up first. And then I started what's called my irresistible offer. Now, your irresistible offer is something specific to your niche. So if you had somebody in your niche and you were to give them something that is just so incredible that there's no chance that they could say no, that is what your irresistible offer is. And this is going to be different for everybody and everybody's niche. Now, for my niche, it's making it home safely, because we live, we're in a very very dangerous field, a dangerous line of work, and making sure that you're physically fit if you get into that fight for your life, or you're fighting that fire and you need that extra energy. And then having the extra energy to go home and play with your kids. So that is what I do in my video. I talk about that, and I talk about how I'm able to feel like that. I have this amazing feeling that I know, that I'd like to share with them, and I know how to accomplish that. And because of that, I'm offering them this offer to join my challenge group. I do it once a month. So I lead up and I build up by giving them all these engaging posts until I do that once a month, where I give them my irresistible offer. Now, my irresistible offer, like Steve said, is on my blog, which is something that in my mind, it's pretty mandatory when you come into adding forms and content in there. I mean, it's the only place where you have on the internet where you have, the total control over. So I add my form with my video on top, and I ask a lot of questions. I ask actually 10 questions total, and some people were telling me, hey, that's a little bit overboard, but the way that I feel is that these people are really qualified when they take the time to do that. If you had people just going through your blog and they were just, they wanted to be police officers maybe at some point, and they really weren't into the whole losing weight thing, they would probably get to the third or fourth question and stop. And our time is very, very important. So it's important to get these people qualified before you start getting them on the phone, just because you don't want to be wasting any time, getting those wishy-washy people where you talk to them and they say, oh, no, thanks, I'm not interested in it. You're really able to qualify them. Now, there's not going to be a time when you don't have anybody who everybody's you're going to have a 100% conversion rate, but the more people you talk to, I pretty much get about a 75% conversion rate because I'm able to qualify it this way. Now, some of the questions, let me tell you what some of the questions are. I go into name, email, phone number. I ask them for a few different days and times that we can talk on the phone. I ask them what their goals are and why do they have those goals. I ask them, hey, how motivated are you today? I mean, are you just like testing the water? Are you really excited about this? I ask them, and this is probably the one that gets them the most, is what's going to be the hardest part for you? And for that question alone, I get paragraphs and paragraphs worth of people pouring themselves into my form, and I get that into my email, and that is a very qualified person that I want to get on the phone with. So once I have my form, my blog, and I have my Facebook and my niche up, then I start working my way into Facebook ads, which is what Steve was talking about. Now, before I get too deep into Facebook ads, I want to make sure you know the first ad you do is not going to be successful. I mean, you may just be the luckiest person ever, but it takes a lot of time of testing it, switching up the picture, switching up the wording, switching up the audience. You've got to really test it. And once you find that that sweet spot, that's where you need to stay at. Now that I have my niche, my irresistible offer and everything, I got to make sure that I target the right people. If I have all these beautiful landing pages and all this other stuff and I'm targeting people that are not going to be interested in it, it really does me no good. So Facebook has a system where you're actually able to create these custom audiences. So what I did is I took a custom audience, and let me tell you a little bit about what a custom audience is. So a custom audience is basically either the Facebook IDs or the email addresses for specific people in your niche on Facebook. So you can get that from even from your blog, because if you have a blog, let's say you've set up and specifically send to people who are in your niche and they come and visit your blog, there's a way to capture that information there. It could be your Facebook business page. If you have a business page and you've gotten a lot of likes, you can create them as a custom audience. You can create custom audiences from some of the email programs out there like Aweber or MailChimp. Anytime that you have somebody's email address and they are a part of your niche, you can get them into this custom audience. Now, I know what you're thinking, because when you grab all those names together, you may have only 1,000 names total out of everything, maybe even less than that. Well, Facebook has taken it a step further, and basically what they've done is they've created what's called a lookalike audience, and this is how I got my 1.8 million people. So I had about 4,000 police officers that I knew on Facebook from all over the United States. I was able to plug them into the lookalike audience. And what Facebook does is it does a search for all of these 4,000 names, and it finds what similarities it has between those people. And then it creates a list for you of people who have those kind of similarities as well. And so basically it comes up with this exponential number of people who are very similar to whatever your target audience was. And that's how I got 1.8 million people. Now, what I do is once a month I will give my irresistible offer. I will put the ad up for about 2 days. And the reason why I only put it up for 2 days, it's usually on a Saturday and Sunday, those are my busiest days for my niche, is because I get too many people. I'm a police officer, I'm a father, I'm a husband. It's very difficult to make 30 phone calls in a week, which is what happened when I originally started this. I had 30 people complete the form. I ended up getting on the phone with 25 people. 5 people just didn't reply back to me with a time that they'd like to talk. Out of those 25 people, I had 12 people buy within that week. 7 people bought the following month. So out of all that, when you have those really qualified leads, you're able to really target them. And now I have this never-ending Facebook, 1.8 million people are on Facebook that I can target, and I turn it off and on whenever I need more people to fill out my form and for me to contact them. So does that pretty much answer your question, Steve?
I think it does in a big way. There was one thing out of our conversation that we had earlier today. Tell me the mindset of the people that are on the phone with you here. You talked about they're almost like, your friends. They came in predisposed. They really wanted to be a part of what you were doing.
Yes. So because I'm able to, they're a part of my niche, and I'm able to really highly qualify them. They feel, I feel too like we're friends. Like they submit that form. I know about them. They know about me. They see me in my video. They see me on my blog. They've really got this, and I've got this feeling that, hey, I'm speaking to somebody that I've spoken to before. We have this, hey, how are the police officers in the East Coast versus the West Coast? And just because we have that niche, it's so important and so huge, it's like we're long-lost brothers. And that happens more than not. And I actually have to say, okay, we can continue this another time, but I think you're here because you'd like to get your health and fitness in line. And they're like, yes, what do I need to do? Like they've got this really feeling of trust because I'm a police officer like them. I share their niche, and that's what makes us friends even before we talk on the phone.
Everybody on the call here tonight, I think, would love to be in the situation where you're not having to dig into your warm market. You're not having to, talk to people on the line at the grocery store or Starbucks or something like that. But you've reached out to people you don't know, but you've predetermined are the perfect niche for you and your business. And because all the content that you create is geared towards them, they're chomping at the bit to become a part of it, to the point where you can only run it for 2 days because you don't have enough time to actually deal with more people than that. And your pool of people to talk to will never end. There's 1.8 million people there, 1.9, 1.88. So this is, it's such an exciting story for you and your business, but it should be very exciting for everybody that's listening here, because this is real, right? And it's a process. It's a process from establishing your brand and your niche to creating your blog with the right kind of content, the right kind of offers, promoting that offer on Facebook and using all of their targeting opportunities here, and sending people to a form. But thank you for sharing all of that. I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it's been to be working with you. We're going to wrap it up here. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for coming.